Lately, I've enjoyed reading fiction books more often. It's very easy sometimes to get stuck in the world of theology. But what you soon discover in the world of fiction is actually there's a whole lot of theology being discussed, even if they don't use the language of God and the religious life. Recently, I've been reading this book. It's called They Both Die at the End, written by a man called Adam Silvera. It's a young adult book that the author creates a world where it's very similar to our own world, apart from one very important thing. They have discovered a technology or a mechanism which tells them when people are going to die in this world. So what happens is someone will one day get a phone call and a voice on the other end of the phone line will tell them that within the next 24 hours, sometime, you are going to die. They won't be able to tell you when or how, and as of yet, in this book, they have never yet been proven wrong. Now that's the kind of call you really don't want to be receiving, isn't it? It's like those cold calls that we get are bad enough, but then they're taken to another level. A stranger's voice on the phone telling you this is your end. I've not yet finished the book, but it centres around two boys, both around 18 years old, who both have received their call and must now decide, how am I going to live my final day? It's a fascinating book in many ways because it asks questions about something we don't often like to think about, which is our death. What would you do on your last day? Would knowing about it change the way that you approach that day and your life? Would you get in touch with people who you haven't spoken to for ages, try and mend some fences and solve some old arguments perhaps? Would you gather around you the people who are closest to you? Would you rob a bank and go on a spending spree and go out in style? They're all interesting questions, aren't they? In our reading from John 17, we meet Jesus in the process already of answering those kinds of questions for himself. Because he is about to be taken from his disciples. He's about to endure the cross, and then he'll be returning to his Father in heaven. And this is his time to say what he wants to say to them while he still can. And in our reading, the thing that Jesus wants most his friends to hear is this: that they remain in the world, despite the evil that surrounds them, and that they will know the protection of God as they walk through life. As Jesus is on his way to the Father, he doesn't pray, "Can I bring them with me?" No, but like those two young men in the book I'm reading, Jesus knows that he must go on this journey alone, and they can't come with him. Rather, he wants God to keep them in the world and to be with them as they face the realities of what that means. On Thursday this week just gone, many churches would have celebrated Ascension Day. It's that moment in the church calendar where we remember Jesus' ascension to the right hand of God. You can read the story in the early chapter of the book of Acts. The Ascension is one of those moments which is bitter-sweet. It is sweet in that this ascension is the climax, if you will, of Jesus' ministry. The Apostle Paul speaks very powerfully about this when he speaks in Ephesians 4 of Jesus as the Christ who ascended far above all the heavens so that he might fill all things. It's a wonderful image. There's a great sweetness to this moment of ascension. But there's also a bitterness about it as well. For a while at least, these disciples are now once again alone. They have seen Jesus taken from them. They're awaiting this promised gift that Jesus has spoken about. But in the meantime, what are they to do? It's an unusual part of the story, this one, and we don't often think about that moment between Ascension and Pentecost. But in some ways, that is describing our experience of the world too. You might know what it's like to be in that in-between space, where the old has now gone, the new is about to come, but somehow you're not fully out of the old and not yet fully into the new, and you're in this kind of liminal space where edges overlap and it's not quite clear exactly where you stand. I wonder if the disciples were asking themselves that day, why didn't he take us with him? Why not bring all things to an end at that point and then usher in the kingdom of God? Why leave us behind to struggle with life in this world? And you might wonder the same thing at times. What is the point of remaining in this world? Why doesn't Jesus take me to be where he is? So often people wrestling with those questions have come up with the kind of answers and the kind of theology that says the end is nigh all the time. You get some versions of this story that would have us believe that the world is an irredeemably broken place on its way to a kind of cosmic rubbish bin. You see it in groups who are constantly predicting the dates and the times when everything is going to end. They look at astronomical events and they see in them signs that the world is about to burn up. Or else you can see it in the theologies that speak of Jesus kind of teleporting us out of the world before it all collapses in on itself. It's called a kind of rapture, a theology that makes very little sense to me, if I'm honest. All of those things, I think, are a misguided way of understanding what's going on. And in our reading today from John 17, Jesus shows us what his desire is for his disciples: to stay in the world. In his prayer, he doesn't ask that God teleport us out so that we can be rid of the messiness of this world. He doesn't ask for the world to be cleansed so that we can enjoy it without all those nasty other people around. No, he asks that his disciples might stay in the world. And he asks that they might know in the world the protection of God from the evil that is in the world. And he asks that they might be sent into the world in the same way that the Father sent Jesus himself into the world. And that really is the heart of what Jesus desires for us in this chapter. That we be in the world, sent to the world, not taken away from it. So I want to put it in these words. We might not belong to the world, but we do belong in the world. We might not belong to the world, but we do belong in the world. Far too often we receive that message that we don't really belong here. We have hymns that tell us we're simply passing through. We have no roots here, that we're waiting to be somewhere else. But Jesus says he wants us to be here. We belong here. We belong among the broken and the poor. We belong among the rich and the powerful. We belong among those who have been rejected and those who are forgotten. We belong among the chosen and those who get the first and the last word. So, what for? And I think that's the key question that our passage raises for us today. A question I think that we are being asked at Clarence Road. What are we in this world for? Our world, Southend-on-Sea and the areas we live surrounding us. What are we here for? Why hasn't Jesus simply taken us to be with him? I believe that there are so many answers to that question in particular, but ultimately we are here to be like Jesus in the world. As he says, the Father sent him, so he sends us to be people who speak a liberating good news of the gospel, to be people who bring healing to those who are broken, hope to those who are lost, challenge to those who are too comfortable, and rebuke for those who abuse the poor and exploit the marginalized. We are to be like yeast in the world, working our way through the whole thing until it becomes a different place entirely. We belong in the world, even if we do not belong to the world. I would invite you to consider what that means for you as individuals. How does that affect the choices that you make in your life? Are there things that you need to rethink? Do you find yourself living for another place and another time and forget about the calling to be here and now? But also as a church, we must think about how our lives together is an expression of an alternative world. A world in which the stranger is welcome. A world where the poor and the rich can sit around the same table, where we are challenged to see evil that can so easily invade our hearts and reject it for the sake of the gospel. As he's about to be taken from them, Jesus' words to his disciples are all about keeping them where they are, not taking them away with him. And that would be really hard to hear. Just as if it would be hard for you to hear similar things from someone you love who is going. One day, of course, Jesus does promise to return for them. He says, I'm going to prepare something for you that you might be with me forever. He will come, but not yet. For now, they are to be in the world. But soon they would also receive a gift from Jesus, which would make this challenge possible. This gift would empower and transform them. It would give them a new boldness and a new courage to be in this world as witnesses for Jesus and for his kingdom. And so too also we wait for that gift. We wait to hear that Jesus says to us, I am sending you a gift. One who will make living in this world possible. So as we wait together, let's hear again that Jesus' desire for us is to be in the world. Let's ask for ourselves as individuals, what does that mean? Am I living in the world, or am I living somewhere else, waiting for something else? And let's ask what that means for us as a church in the days we're living, as everything is changing around us, as a new world is about to come about, as the unknown and the uncertainties of life are all around us. Might Jesus be saying to us as a church, you are where I want you to be, not off somewhere else in a safe place, but in the middle of a world that needs to know me and my liberating good news. As we face these challenging questions, Let's not turn away from them. Let's not hide from them. Let's not hear Jesus saying, you can come away. But may he give us the courage and the wisdom and the protection we need to be in this world, surrounded by all its ugliness, and yet bringing something beautiful also. Amen.